If John Side's listening to this, the question is he knows they work exceptionally well because they beat him every time we play basketball, still to this day. And that's my highlight of my career, and that is beating John Side in basketball, aside from all the other fun moments and times. But I just remember, and I was thinking about this recently, and I was thinking, what are your go-to moves when it comes to this game that we play in real estate? And what I mean by that is, when the chips are down, what do you do? When deals are imploding, or there are no deals happening for you, what do you do? Right? Some of us will try to escape, we'll try to run from the business, we'll try to use all sorts of things. We'll go do other things, we'll do things that are harmful, things that are helpful, but we will do things, and the question is, are we doing the right things? Are we doing the things that when the chips are down, do we do the right things? So I remember years ago, I would go to different events. I'd go to conferences. I'd go to seminars. I'd go to Tony Robbins, Mike Ferry, Brian Tracy, Zig Ziglar, you name it, man, I was there. And over the years, what I have found is that I can go to all of these different things, but the real challenge in this business isn't the fact that I can't go to those things. It's, can I stay centered enough in my business when I'm not attending a seminar, or if it's another whole month until the next summit, or until I go to another event like a Mike Ferry event, or if you go to something different. Any of these types of things are things that bring us back and get us recentered. So the question is, can you get yourself centered? Can you get yourself aligned, despite whether or not you are attending a seminar, a conference, a coaching session? Can you create that on your own? Well, I am absolutely convinced that you can. And the thing that I know that needs to happen is that you need to pay attention to what is it that takes you off track. And so I want to talk a little bit about that. Here's the first thing I want to share with you, and that is number one. Number one is this, is know, I'm going to write this up here on the dry erase board, know where you are going. Now, that seems like such a simple, easy, rudimentary, elementary statement. Know where you are going, right? Because the fact is, if you don't know where you're going, I want to point out just a few key areas where you need to be going, or where you need to figure out where you're going, and that is this. Let's just say number one would be your health, right? Where are you going when it comes to your health? Whether it be that you weigh a certain amount. Maybe it's that you can run a certain amount. Maybe it's walk a certain amount. Maybe it's build muscle in a certain way. Maybe it's a triathlon, a marathon, something. But my question for you is, do you know where you're going when it comes to your health? And we're going to get to a few other key points here, knowing where you're going. Number two is this, and that is your relationships. And what I would ask you is this, in regards to relationships, there's 5 key areas that I want you to focus on. Number one, yourself, meaning me. Do you know the relationship? Have you defined how you're going to treat yourself? Have you gotten clear on what it means to love yourself, to honor yourself, to respect yourself, to give to yourself? Second is your intimate relationship. Okay, these are not in any particular order, except I do believe you have to have a great relationship with yourself. Intimately, what does that look like? Is it defined? Is it clear? Do you know where you're going? Number 3 is your spiritual relationship. I'm just going to put up here God. Do you know where you're going spiritually? Maybe for some of you it might be religiously. For some of you it might be a church. For some of you, you may say, I'm not really religious, but I'm very spiritual. But I do know that you need to know where you're going and how you're going to connect. And I'm a huge believer of this statement, and that is, decide what you believe and live it. Decide what you believe and live it. Simple statement, not so easy to do. So again, the decision is to what you believe, and number 2, to go out and live it. The fourth principle here in regards to relationships is your family. And meaning specifically, I'm just going to write up here your children. One of the questions I love to ask is, what type of relationship do you want with your children? And what type of father or mother do you intend to be? right? We're going to define what the relationship looks like, and then we're going to get really clear on what it means from the standpoint of who you have to be. And then the fifth is on relationships is everyone else. Look, I don't know what it is, but I am driven in one principle. In fact, I almost feel like it's a calling, like I've been called to do one thing, and that is I am never concerned as to what it is an individual wants to do economically with their life. I'm not concerned of what they want to do in their secular life, like the profession, what they choose, what their career is. But what I am absolutely committed to is I want to do everything I can to assist that person to becoming their very best. It's really the mission, if you would say, of this organization. It's the essence of what we work on every day, and that is the becoming. Because the reality is that if we can relate in a better fashion with our families, our partners, our children, everyone else, and including ourselves, well, our relationships, when we're clear on where we're going there, life is a lot better. And the third thing I want to bring up here is the money part of it. I'm going to put here finance. But there's two specific areas I want to focus on. The first one is this, and that is that you have to make sure you create cash flow in your business. Cash flow. Cash is king. We've heard that before. Like I always get people who tell me I want to buy a bunch of property, and I'm always concerned, like, well, wait, do you have any consistent cash flow? And they say to me usually, well, no, I don't really. So what happens if there's a hiccup? What happens if there's a problem? What happens if you don't have enough cash to be able to pay for any damages or challenges that come along with owning other pieces of property? So we're in such a great business to create cash flow. Let's make sure we create the cash flow so that we for sure then can do number two, which is the assets, right? So if there's three distinct areas of our lives that we need to understand and where we're going, it is our health, it is our relationships, and it is our finance. Now you could add other things into this. You could add just basic goals, right? Maybe it's something that you want to buy. Maybe it's something that you want to do. So I know people are taking notes. Something you want to buy, or many things you want to buy. Maybe it's things that you want to do. And the other thing I always love to bring up is how are you going to contribute? How are you going to contribute to others, to humanity, to, maybe there's a nonprofit, maybe there's a charity, maybe there's a church, maybe there's something you want to contribute to with your time and your money. But what I have realized in life is that the clearer I am in where I want to go, the decision-making process becomes very easy. And I talked about that a few weeks ago, which is if you don't know where you're going, it is almost next to impossible to make good decisions. If you don't know where you're going, it is almost next to impossible to make good decisions. When you feel off, when you feel like you don't know what to do next, or where to go, or what to do, or how to act, or how to proceed in your life, if you feel lost, anxious, fearful, if you feel these types of emotions, which we all do at different times of our life, I can promise you it is because you are unclear on where you are going. When you know where you are going economically and with your health and the relationships of your life and other goals and ways in which you contribute, things you may acquire and experiences that you want to have, your life can become much more fulfilled. See, what I've realized that when I go to the seminar or when I go to the conference or I go do something where I hear like a Tony Robbins and others speak, it's not that I don't garner some extraordinary things from that, but what really happens in those events is that when I'm there to Tony Robbins, like let's just say to unleash the power within, and I'm there for 3.5 days. For 3.5 days, I am figuring out what I want my life to be. I may work on some things that are stopping me or preventing me from getting what I want, but one of the most important things that comes from an event is you getting clear on where you're going. Now, I had Danette Grant just a moment ago before we started. She goes, the hot topic of the day, it seems like everybody's talking about writing in your journal. And I looked up and I said, well, of course, that's a hot topic, right? And I will have to tell you, I have who knows how many journals for so many years. when it wasn't kind of the cool thing, the thing that everybody looked at, I would walk around with this journal. Everybody thought I was carrying some book of scripture, and I would say, as they'd ask me if it was some religious book, and I would say no, but it is a collection of writings. And I would open it up. And over the years, I've had so many people ask me, what is it that I write about? Well, look, this is what I write about most. Where am I going? That is one of the most fundamental things that have to happen to a successful life. Once you know where you're going, then you can start executing on a few other things to get there. So, again, I know there's a few people that are listening. Because we've had some technical difficulties, if you could mute your phone, it would be incredibly helpful so we don't get the background noise. Would be awesome. Thank you very much. If you're unmuted, if you're not muted yet, please do. So, number one, again, know where you're going. Number two, and I talked a little bit about this today, is why, right? What I'm really interested in here is the emotion behind things. So when I go to an event, or I go to a conference seminar, not only do I get clear on what I want, but then I get really resolved and I can feel this energy moving in. And I start to write in my journal as to why do I want this? When an agent comes into my office and says, I want to sell 50 homes, I'm not as interested in the fact that they want to sell 50 homes as I am, why do you want 50 homes? I had a great conversation earlier today with one of our dear friends and agents in the company, Chase Watts. And we were talking about the income that one can earn, and then we were talking about the quality of life. And what was so cool was to hear the bridge between what he wanted and why. Man, and when you can attach the wants along with the why, the purposes that drive you, it's unbelievable what you can accomplish. I just love watching that. I love watching that happen inside someone when they get really clear on what they want and they know why they want it, and it's like nothing can stop them from getting there. Nothing. Their commitment level, it goes to the sky. They find ways, they find creativity, they find commitment and discipline, and they just drive their life towards it because it means something. They know why. Okay? So, know where you're going. Number two, why are you getting there? Then, the third question I want to pose to you, or third principle in regards to kind of your go-to, when you're off, when you're frustrated, you're fearful, you're depressed, you're anxious, you feel lost. Again, when you're lost, stop for a moment, kind of look around and go, wait a second, I'm lost. Now, if you're in a scout, you'd say, okay, first of all, let's find out which way is, north, east, west, south. Get my coordinates here as I'm standing here. But you find out, and you figure out where you are. And once you figure out where you are, you can kind of figure out where you're going, and all of a sudden, this starts to make sense. You start realizing, okay, this is where I'm going. This is why I want to get here. And then third is we ask ourselves, what do we have to, right? What do we have to do? What do we have to do to get what we want? See, that's the beauty. Sometimes it's not even actually what we want that is so cool. It's this part. I'm going to put a big word up here. I'm going to put this up here. It's really this. Who do we have to become? Right? Who do we have to become to get what we want? We may know why we want it. We can feel all the emotion, the heart, the soul of it. We may know what we want. But man, what a question. What do we have to do to get what we want? What I'm really asking is, who do we have to become? Right? Let's assume we know we need to prospect. Let's assume we know we need to master a skill set or two. Let's assume we know that we have to do a handful of different skill buildings and personal disciplines and elevation of abilities. Of course. But see, all of those things. See, what I want is that if I met you, you said, George, I've decided that I'm going to move to another state and I'm going to start my career over and it's going to be just fine. And I should be able to look at you and go, you know what? Boy, our time together has been great. I am so grateful for it. I wish you well. And I know with confidence that no matter where you are putting yourself in this country, that no matter who you work for, no matter what you do, you will be successful because of who you have become. Your ability to communicate, your mental toughness, your mindset, your confidence, your beliefs, your skill sets, your ability to present, your ability to do all the things necessary, that no matter where you were put, because you have a high level of discipline, you would win the game. That is my hope and my expectation, that you are never, ever in question of can you make a living in this business. There are agents who I will meet who have made the most money in the worst of times. There are agents who have made the most money in the best of times. There are agents who make money no matter what the market is doing. High, low, transitioning, steady, flat. Doesn't matter, they're earning money. Why? Because they've worked on themselves from the inside out. How they communicate, how they are disciplined, how they think, how they believe. All of these factors. Now here, look, gang, you can go to seminars. You can go to a coaching session like this. You can go do all of these different things to garner these abilities, these strengths, these possibilities. But I can promise you that you will never, ever pay the price to becoming more if you are not emotionally charged to what you want your life to be. There's a great message. I'm not going to write it up here, but I just want you to think about this. If you have a high level of desire for something, you will have a high level of discipline for something. If your desire is lacking, if you're kind of like, well, I'd like this, which really is code for, I'd like this, but I don't want to work real hard to get it. And if I don't have to work real hard to get it, well, then I want it. Well, look, the key ingredient to all success is how hard are you willing to work. So here's point number 4 that we'll finish with the points, and then we'll wrap up with a thought or two in the end here. But here's point number 4, right? We've talked about what do you want? Why do you want it? What do you have to do to get it? Ooh, this is the key one. Is it worth the price, right? The price you have to pay to get it. Only you can answer that question. Now, I've had a number of things in my life, I think you can probably relate to something like this, where I've paid a price for something, I've worked for something, strived for something, achieved something, and I look back and I go, oh my goodness gracious, I would never, ever pay that price again to get what I have. I don't know if you're like me, but there's a lot of times in my life where I think to myself, I don't know if I knew what I knew now, if I would actually choose to do that again. I think that's probably pretty common. Because even though we may think we know what we have to become, and we say, oh yeah, I'm totally willing to become more, and we say, I'm willing to pay that price, oh you bet. Boy, the refiner's process, the refining process is oftentimes more brutal than we may ever consider. Gang, I can remember, I'll close with this story, but I can remember a couple of moments in my life where I remember driving, and some of you will recognize this lake, but I was on my way to play golf, which is always a highlight for me. You'd think like, oh my gosh, why would you be sad on your way to going to play golf? This is nearly 20 years ago. And I remember driving by what was called Jordanelle Reservoir. It's called Jordanelle. This is up in the Heber and Midway area of Utah, if you're familiar with that. And I'm driving down the hill, and I remember saying these words out loud. And I said, with tears in my eyes, and as tears started to stream, I said these words, which were, I hate my life. And what was so bizarre is how unhappy I was at that moment, how miserable I was at that moment. And for me, shortly after that, I actually went and played golf. Then after I played golf, I came back into my car, and I was driving alone, and I then pulled off on the side of a road, and I opened my journal, and I began to write. And that is really where I got connected and committed to writing in a journal. And what I wrote in those early days was really the beginning of formulating in my own mind what I wanted, why I wanted it, and what I would have to, or who I would have to become in that process. So again, my challenge to you today, is that you're going through oftentimes a very difficult moment. You guys have heard me say this for years. Treat everybody you know as if they're going through the most difficult moments of their life, and you will be right more than 50% of the time. I've now added a little bit to that, and that is, I believe that it's probably more than 50%. I actually think it's more like 75% of the people I meet are going through some of the most difficult moments of their life. Maybe it's something in their health, maybe it's something in their relationships, or maybe it's something in their finances. But somewhere, some way, they're going through some difficult moments. And what I realized back then, nearly 20 years ago, was that when I wrote in my journal, I defined what I want, why I want it, who I have to become. And then I didn't answer it then of what was I willing to pay the price. I think I probably just assumed that I was willing to pay the price. Well, as the story continues and as life has continued for me, I've gotten more clear on that price. And here's what I would tell you. The observance in my own life of the price that we each have to pay, but also the observances I've watched in other people's lives as they have paid it to become more, to achieve more, to accomplish more, to live their dreams. And I guess what I would tell you is I know that it's a difficult process. I know that it is a very challenging price. And although we may say, well, isn't it just talking to people on a phone? Isn't it just giving a few presentations? Anyone who has high level success knows that the moment that they committed to truly becoming great, right? Truly becoming their very, very best is when the price really began to be paid. And it is never easy, and only you can answer the fact, is it worth it? I would tell you, even though as I look back, I think to myself in building Everest or the moments of challenge in selling lots of real estate, it seems so challenging, so difficult, but I would echo that it was 100% worth it, because it is what has helped me to become more, and it is what has helped me to become more centered and, frankly, more happy. And in the end, I have a deep belief that you deserve to be happy, and I have a deep belief you deserve success. And success is not an exclusive club. It is for everyone who simply wants it. And as you progress towards, in the words of Earl Nightingale, towards a worthy ideal and goal, you know why you're doing it, you know who you have to become in the process, your mindset, your skills, and your discipline. Only you can answer, is it worth the price? I hope the answer is yes, because I love working with you, and I love seeing you become more, achieving more, and doing the things that are necessary to win this game. In the end, it is always your decision. And in the end, you can have your mini conferences with yourself in your journal, define what you want, why, and what you have to become. And I can promise you, if you will write that down consistently in your journal, you will stay centered, you will stay positive, you will stay focused, you will find less and less of the anxiety, the setbacks, the feeling lost, and all the things that come about when we aren't clear on where we're going. So, with that being said, hope you guys know how much I appreciate you. I hope you have a wonderful and beautiful holiday. I suspect Russ, are we having a call next week? We are not having a call next week. So we will certainly we will resume our coaching calls next year, that first week of January. Is it the first week of January we're having our first call? And just want you guys to know again how grateful we are for you. Have a wonderful holiday, and I hope you have a beautiful celebration with friends and family and loved ones, and enjoy the time. But remember, be clear, get clear on where you're going. And with that, I will leave you, and have a great day.